The name of the game is presented by Bravo, the marketing arm of Ash Brokerage Corporation, the practice enhancement company. Welcome to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. Hi everyone, I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money gamer extraordinaire. On today's show, we're going to examine the problems of cash flow during retirement. We're going to let the math make the call. I think you're going to be surprised at some of our answers. And on today's show, we're going back to school and use basic math to help guide us in our financial decisions. We're going to address 4 of the most popular consumer questions asked to advisors. And to help us understand the logic behind the math is Bob Ritter, the architect of one of the most popular financial advisor software systems in the country. It's good logic versus bad logic. In the G segment, it's game on as we examine the financial theory behind buy term and invest the difference. In the A segment, we're going to introduce you to the math of good logic and bad logic. In the M segment, we're going to take our money mentor, Bob Ritter, and he'll display the impact of Roth IRA conversions. And in the E segment, we're going to discuss long-term care in your retirement. Well, welcome to the show, Bob.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. You know, we're talking about, this shouldn't be a controversy, but it is. On the internet, there is no other controversy bigger than, should I buy term and invest the difference? There is so much out on Google on this, you cannot believe. If you Google it out, there's a war zone out there. And on top of that, sometimes it's even worse when you talk about specific permanent products like term insurance versus whole life. But today I want to talk about this strictly from the math point of view. You know, you're one of the largest distributors of technical software in the United States for advisors. And to have you on the show and a consumer show is really a treat for us. Now, when I think about this, I'm looking at, I just want to know the data. I want to let the math speak for itself. I have no ideology on the show. I want to know, is it better for me to buy term and invest the difference, or is permanent insurance ever a play? If it's not, I'm still going to stay with the mantra of buy term and forget everything else. But if it's not, I want to look at the math. Talk a little bit about the ideology behind this and why we had to go to this.
Well, there are a couple of circumstances where, of course, you should buy term. A, there's no cash flow. When I first got married and my wife was pregnant, I had to buy term. I didn't have much money to put in it. But if you're talking to someone who has a cash flow to buy what he wants, that's a different story. There's mathematics you can use to determine the difference in the price between the two, what you could do with the difference, and if you put it in the life insurance, if you put the difference in a life insurance policy, do you make out better than if you put it in a side fund along with some term insurance? Most everybody thinks you make out better with the term in the side fund, and you just don't.
Right, and a lot of it, remember, this is, the ideology is if I'm ideal in my way of approach, that means I buy term and invest the difference. The problem is most of my clients don't invest the difference at all. They spend the difference. But let's say you did. So we're going to go ahead and look at a taxable fund. Or how about, what if I showed this at term, invest the difference in a qualified plan?
Same
Would
thing.
It matter?
Same results.
Even though I have my deduction?
Yep.
And are you including the deduction into the worksheet to see if
Because
that's
you
a
got
better
taxable
deal?
income later and you don't have the life policy.
And
that's,
you
that's
show
the
that
balance.
both sides as
that's
well?
That's the balance.
Okay,
yeah.
so if I have a qualified plan and I'm investing my money in a qualified plan, the difference, I'm buying term and investing the difference in a qualified plan, I'm getting the deduction, I'm throwing that on the balance sheet to show that, hey, we've been fair here because we actually got a benefit from that. But when we pull out the money, we not only have to pay taxes on my qualified plan, I might have to pay taxes on my Social Security because of that move. But if I'm looking at this reverse idea, we're looking at the mathematics between a term taxable account. And I noticed that you used about, what, a 7.5%, what I think it was on this one?
Yeah, because I did the UL, indexed UL
Right.
at 7.5. I did the taxable account. I don't know where you're going to get 7.5, but assuming you could.
But let's say you could. So if I'm looking at, and this does not incorporate any of the costs of the fund, right? I mean, this is just
no
raw
management
data.
fees, no
management
nothing.
fees
No
by a
sales
registered
charges,
investment
nothing.
advisor. Okay, so we're looking at this as a comparison, and this is why I like your software, because it really settles the issue. Now remember, there are going to be times when you have to buy term, but if you're buying term to invest the difference for long haul retirement supplemental income, you need to start looking at this because this could be the way to go for you. And when I look at this, I'm incorporating only the tax issues. I'm not doing some of the fees and everything that you've just mentioned. Does this ever not work? How long do I have to be into this before I say this always
You
is gonna be?
probably need at least a need for insurance for at least 10 years.
Okay. And what about the math to overcome insurance costs and expensive loads that I have in the policy?
Well, that's included in the math. The only thing that shuts down the value of an indexed UL or reduces the value are the mortality charges and maybe minor administrative charges. Some carriers have them, some don't. they're minuscule compared to the charges, for instance, on a taxable account.
So I could take any client watching us today, they could order the data collector, we could do these numbers for them, and they could look at for themselves, is this the better deal?
Yes.
Because you could be investing in a non-qualified, maybe a CD or whatever. You
Yes.
could be investing in a qualified plan.
Yep.
We'll be able to quantify all the aspects. Are we able to put in expense loads too and so
Yep.
forth? So we could actually plug those in as well, and that would ferret out the actual return. So the longer I can hold it, and it sounds like you're saying I really need to be 10 years or more, or really that's when it becomes an issue.
Yes.
Okay, so if I'm looking at the difference, if you're saying, Steve, I'd like to know once and for all, I've had both people talk to me, I'd like to know, is buying term and investing difference the better way for me? And I want to see the mathematics behind it, and I want to see that, we could actually show that to
Yes,
the
we
client.
can.
Okay, now when you invented this, was this one of your first inventions from Innsmark and Wealthy Wise, both these architects?
First
that you did?
illustration we ever did.
This one
was
here.
this, yes.
And was it because it's so controversial?
No, it was so mathematically accurate. I'd known it for years, and we had to hand do this. But when we developed the computer systems, well, it was easy to get the computers to do it.
Well, when I think about doing this, it's so intuitive. You go out to Google, it's such a controversy. Now we can end that controversy by good mathematics, good logic, and I really request you, if you're going to be in your contract for at least 10 years or more, this is something you need to look at as a kind of a comparison tool. This is what I like to do. I like to put math on a timeline and quantify whether my client is getting a better deal or not. And I have no axe to grind. I have no ideology to support. I just want to know what the truth is.
Because sometimes the program says by term.
And we'll do
Because
it.
we have no extra grind.
Right. This is what I like about programs like this. They're actually, if you don't mind me using the word, they're kind of agnostic. They don't really show one way or the other. There's no real ideology to support here. So when I'm looking at this kind of idea from a case study point of view, if you want to quantify this, we can do that for you, and then you can make your own decision for yourself. If you want more information on the basics of cash flow planning for your retirement, just email me, steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com, and I'll email you our retirement manual that'll include a basic worksheet that can help you create a plan for your retirement. The basic worksheet will take about 13 minutes. Is your retirement worth 13 minutes? I'm sure it is. When we come back from the break, Bob and I are going to walk you through the basics of cash flow planning with good logic versus bad logic in our A segment of the show.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life, from one of the largest distributors of indexed universal life, Ash Brokerage.
Well, welcome back to the A segment. I'm Steve Savant with Bob Ritter, financial planner, convention speaker, and creator of Innsmark, one of the most popular financial advisor software systems in the country. And just a heads up, before moving forward with any of the ideas on the show, always consult your tax advisor or legal counsel. We're talking about the basics of cash flow planning through good logic versus bad logic. Well, Bob, we're talking about this philosophy. You've actually trademarked this thing called good logic, bad logic. I kind of like that. Talk a little about what started this down your road. Why did you come to this thinking?
Well, as we were analyzing wealth at various levels, and we discovered that there are three aspects to wealth planning, and most advisors only pay attention to two of them.
Well, what's the first one?
Accumulation of assets. The standard second one is distribution of assets. The one in the middle is I'm now 65, I need X per month, and I need to get it out of this assets, but I got a bunch of them. Which asset do I take it from?
Well, does it
it matters hugely.
You're saying that, okay, I want to make sure I understand. It's the sequence or the chronology of what you take out first. Could be non-taxable, it could be a bad asset, poorly performing. It matters when it's distributed.
Absolutely.
How many, I don't see that many advisors paying attention to this.
I don't know of very many that, at least the ones who have our systems do, and the clients love it.
Is the impact marginal?
No, it's significant.
So give me an example in your mind. What would be an example of, hey, I'm going to take out, I traditionally would just go, I'm at 65 and I'm saying I'm taking money out of my CD account, I'm taking money out of my qualified plan, I'm going to take a little bit of Social Security. What's going on in the mix here? Why does it matter to take out certain assets at certain times so that I can have more money?
Well, typically your retirement plan is your most valuable asset. You probably want to leave that alone as much as possible. That's a given.
So you're saying stall maybe even age 70 if I had to?
Yes.
So until I'm required to take money out?
Yeah, and don't take out any more than are required even then.
Oh, okay.
Leave it in force. Although it's taxed miserably at death. It's so powerful in its earnings years, it oftentimes even offsets that. It's terribly taxed at death. The major advantage of the logic, though, if you've got, we got one asset, it's easy. But let's say you have 5 or 6. You got some taxables, 2 or 3 different kinds. You've got some tax exempts. You have other things. You might have a deferred account like an annuity. Is that good or bad? Is a deferred annuity a hot asset or a bad asset? The program does the analysis of all different variations of taking money. This one first, this one second, this one fourth. And it can do hundreds of those analyses. With a lot of assets, it is hundreds.
So if you have about 6 to 8 assets, it's those assets times how many iterations that could be.
Times the number of years of the iteration.
Wow.
It's huge. You're generally into the hundreds of thousands or in some cases millions of solves, even on an 8-asset account.
So when I'm looking at the sequence of events of what assets we're taking out first, if we pay attention, and the software will tell us this, what chronology should occur in prioritization.
Yes.
This makes a lot of money for the client.
That doesn't mean a client can't say, no, I don't want to touch that asset. You said take it out last, take it out first. I don't want to take it out first. I'm going to leave it. You can move them around, but the program will give you the ideal.
The program can also tell the client, I know you want me to use this asset first. Here's the ramifications of doing so. So it could show the consequence.
Yep.
And then he may say, well, now on second thought, now after seeing the numbers, maybe I'm going to do it your way.
You'll often get a result where bad logic, your assets do that. Good logic, they do that. The program will tell you how much more you could take out in income.
Well, let's look at that, because I think I think sometimes a picture tells a better idea than you and I dialoguing on it. Now, we're looking at this basic premise of this: good logic, bad logic. Talk about the red. Well, the red is bad.
Red's
It's
bad, green is good, right?
And look what happens to the curve. And this is a normal planning mistake. Everybody just kind of, I think when you approach age 65, you just start hitting your qualified plans. You're taking Social Security. We're not thinking about the ramifications, especially the long haul ramifications you can see on this map. Walk me through these two.
In this case, this is a couple at 65, have assets of a little over $6 million, all liquid, non-liquid, everything. The program taking it out the wrong way, taking the best asset and spending it first, produces a net worth that reduces the 6.5 long range to a little over 3.5. Do it smart, it's 16 million. Astonishing difference.
How can it be so dramatic,
It is.
Bob? It seems like it's way too much.
It isn't. It's in this particular case, it's the math.
We're kind of looking at Einstein's theory of compounded, returns here, because look at the number here that we have here. That we have the same asset base. We're just taking them out in different time, and that makes that much difference. I think people are sitting there going, how am I going to make my retirement stretch? What if I live to 90? You're saying it depends upon how we take assets out. To me, that's huge. Talk about a little bit, what are we doing with our wealth to our heirs?
Well, in this particular case, it's the red is the same. Bad asset to bad asset. There's no state tax at that size of state. There's a little. We built it so high. There is a little bit of a state tax here, down a couple of million. We've also got a lot of money here to do some planning to eliminate that tax.
If you didn't want to give money to your heirs, I'm not trying to be a Scrooge here, but if I didn't want to do that, that number would be, that green line to income could be huge.
Yes.
You could spend it down all the way down, and it would be even more.
And the program will tell you how much that can be.
See, to me, this is the area where we need to go, and we need to think, we have multiple assets for retirement. We need to figure out which one comes out when first, and this program does this. This is why I like it. So many clients that see this actually make good, quality, good logic decisions based on the quantitative issue of math. To me, that's a powerful thing. When you think about this, when you show this to clients, how eye-opener is this?
Our advisors love to show this when you hit that maximize net worth button and it's going through that calculation in maybe 10 seconds. They say it's startlingly eye-opening. How can that possibly be? And it is. Probably the most significant part of the interview is this.
Showing this graph. That's the power of strategically taking out the distribution of certain assets and certain taxable or non-taxable assets, depending on what group they're in. That strategic sequence or that chronology can make all the difference of having a really great lifestyle and a great retirement.
And I'll tell you what else, it also wows the advisor first time they see it. It tells you something about it.
Well, I think that's true. When we show this to advisors, it is an eye-opener because you'd think that they would understand and know this, but remember, many of them don't. They only do year two. They do accumulation, they do distribution, but they don't do the in-between, which is how do I prioritize what gets distributed before we execute the distribution income stream. If you want more information on the basics of cash flow planning for your retirement, just email me, steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com. I'll email you our retirement manual that will include a basic worksheet that can help you create a plan for your retirement. The basic worksheet will take about 13 minutes. Is your retirement worth 13 minutes? I'm sure it is. When we come back from the break, Bob and I are going to talk about the impact of Roth IRA conversions in the M segment of our show.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life, from one of the largest distributors of indexed universal life, Ash Brokerage.
Well, welcome back to the M segment. I'm Steve Savant with Bob Ritter, financial planner, convention speaker, and creator of InsMark, one of the most popular financial advisor software systems in the country. And just a heads up, before moving forward with any of the ideas on the show, always consult your tax advisor or legal counsel. We're talking about the impact of Roth IRA conversions. Well, we're on our third segment. When you think about our M segment, I think about our money mentor being here, Bob Ritter. And Bob, a lot of people are always caught with this idea of, boy, I've heard about traditional IRAs and I've heard about Roth IRAs. I love Roth because it comes out tax-free, but I didn't start out buying Roths early on. I bought traditional IRAs. I thought that was the way to go because I wanted the deduction. Now I'm sitting there in a quandary because I hear some people, sometimes advisors come and say, you should really convert this from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. But I have to pay taxes on that.
You sure do.
So talk about that because that's my objection. I don't want to pay. I'm going to pay. I might be pushed into a different bracket.
Well, you need to measure it. You need to do an analysis where you don't convert it, and you need to compare it to an analysis where you do, and analyze the tax cost as a drag on net worth because it's going to have to come from somewhere, and see if it really isn't an investment in your long-term net worth.
I've noticed that the majority of clients that we've looked at, especially when we run it through your system, whether you're using InsMark or Wealthy and Wise, when I see that, I've noticed that predominantly the little higher up, the higher middle class and higher, that conversion, which I would think would not be true, you'd be paying more taxes. But in the ultimate, especially if you have any kind of human longevity in your retirement years, it's really better to get this up and out of the way and pay the tax up front.
Absolutely.
But now, of course, we have to check. We're going to check that. When you have that, when you're running it through your system to say, should I convert my traditional IRA to a Roth IRA? What do I need as a client? What do I need to submit to you, numbers-wise, data-wise?
Well, to do it properly, we've got to do an overall evaluation of all your net worth. So we need to know, your taxables, your tax exempts, and what the makeup of your assets are, the exact amount of your IRA, and some details about it. All information that you have access to, and then it's entered in the system, and we ask the system to look at it two ways. One, don't do it; the other, do it. So it's kind of a compared to what, which is probably the best way. People don't make very good decisions in an absolute environment. They make great decisions when it's compared to this versus doing that. Particularly if I stay the way I am, what happens? If I do what you're suggesting, what happens? And to both net wealth and wealth to heirs.
If I have a data collector that I can use, and I know that you provide that, how long would it take a client to fill this out so I can say, here's what I should do. Traditional IRA, I should convert it to a Roth or not?
To fill out the data form, it depends upon the extent of the assets, but it shouldn't take more than an hour, half an hour maybe. The easy way to do it is give all your statements to your broker and have him do it for you.
I love that part. If you're going to pay him, you might as well do the work.
Right.
If I compare this, it'll come pretty clear. It's going to be no, you shouldn't, or yes, you should. But most of the ones that you and I are looking at, they really should think about converting it.
The Roth is so powerful it out earns the income tax. Just plain and simple, every time.
Roth comes out free and it doesn't dicker with my Social Security benefits. It's not included in the provisional income test. I think a lot of us think about that and we say, well, I'm bringing my Social Security's coming out free. Well, your qualified plans will touch that, and that income could tax your Social Security. It will actually do it in most cases. So we're thinking about doing something before we get to retirement when we're thinking about converting a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA.
Yes.
Now, I just want to show an example here, what you've done here with your software program, and you're comparing, again, this net worth and wealth to heirs, and talk about a couple of the assumptions real quick, and then let's go to the board.
Well, the assumption was that, as you recall from the last segment, we built this good logic compared to bad logic, which had to do with prioritization of where you get your money. But assuming most clients would say, I don't want to do bad logic, I want to do good logic, that now becomes a red base here. And what I did in this particular example, I converted to a Roth, would draw the taxes on the Roth out of net worth, and also added a feature called a wealth replacement trust, where a trust is formed on behalf of kids, typically children, possibly grandchildren, and a life insurance policy is funded in the trust with gifts from the parents. I included that in the second wealth to heirs.
Now, I'm looking at this example. If I paid the tax in this example, I might have a $300,000 tax bill.
Yes.
Now, I could spread that over some years, right?
Yes.
But how critical? I'm giving up $300,000 plus in taxes. What am I getting in return for that?
The pure raw comparison of good logic to good logic plus Roth, forget the wealth replacement trust, you get about $6 million of an advantage by spending the $300.
So if I could, in my thinking,
a long range advantage.
Yeah, long range. So if I live into my early 90s, this could be a huge play because I have this longevity, so I got time on my hands, I got good compounded opportunities here, but it's always this issue of, can I depart? Can I actually write a check for the kind of amount of money? Even if I took the $300,000 and I amortized it over a 5-year period and I paid my taxes a little bit there, it's still hard for Steve to open up his checkbook and write that check.
Yep.
I have to kind of see the end game and what's the power. And you're looking at, maybe when we're talking about this, we could be looking at maybe a 10-to-1 ratio if we do this kind of good logic over doing nothing and taking out inappropriate assets and using them for our distribution.
Yep.
All right, so everybody, and again, remember, if you say, Steve, I'd like to see that, I actually have a whole piece on this on Roth conversions that I'm happy to send you, and we can send you an example if you want to ask for the data collector. We'll go ahead and do that, and we'll process that for you so that you can actually say, is it a good deal or a bad deal for me, all in. If you want more information on the basics of cash flow planning for your retirement, just email me, steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com, and I'll email our retirement manual that will include a basic worksheet that can help you create a plan for your retirement. The basic worksheet will take about 13 minutes. Is your retirement worth 13 minutes? I'm sure it is. When we come back from the break, Bob and I are going to talk about long-term care coverage in retirement in the E segment of the show.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life, from one of the largest distributors of indexed universal life, Ash Brokerage.
Welcome back to the E segment. I'm Steve Savant with Bob Ritter, financial planner, convention speaker, and creator of Insmark, one of the most popular financial advisor software systems in the country. And just a heads up, before moving forward with any of the ideas you hear on our show, always consult your tax advisor or legal counsel. We're talking about long-term care coverage in retirement. Well, in the last segment, I kind of mentioned a couple times, the longer you're going to live, right? The power of these compounded ideas, these strategies really come into play. But this last one is a debate, and there are a lot of people who debate about this because, am I really going to need assisted living? Am I really going to go into a nursing home? But really, the longer we live, the odds are much increased that I'm going to need at least assisted living. But Bob, let's say I finally come to terms with that, and I'm probably going to have to face it, and maybe I don't want to face it, getting old and all that, but let's just say I'm willing to look at it because it is the way of the human. Now, if I look at it that way, should I be buying long-term care, or should I just fund it self-insured out of my cash reserves? And what is the better deal all in with my money? I want to be a good steward of my money. Should I even waste my time buying long-term care, or should I just go ahead and fund it?
Mathematically, you should buy long-term care.
And how many, is that almost true for almost anybody?
Almost anybody.
So there's a few exceptions to the rule, but almost everybody. Why is that true?
If you analyze the consequences of becoming ill, right? One of you, let's say in a family, one of them becomes ill, goes into care for X number of years. That's going to cause the person who's not in care not to need quite the cash flow that he or she needed prior to. That is an amazing amount of money. Let's say that a couple's earning retiring on $100,000 a year. And they figure if one of them goes into care, the one that's left out of care isn't going to need 100 anymore. It might need 80, or might need 75, or maybe 85, whatever. That value is greater than the cost of the long-term care. Just that simple.
So the premiums will never be greater than that number.
Now, if you say, well, I'm going to still spend my 100, I don't care that I don't need it anymore, I'm not going to spend more than I was spending before. No, but if you take the logical extension, the example here is 25% reduction.
Yeah, let's look at that example, because what we've done is we've kind of looked at a tale of two cities here, how it affects net worth and how it affects, especially if you have any kind of intent to your legacy, your children, grandchildren, or maybe even a charity of your choice. Talk a little bit about the yin and yang here on this basic graph.
Well, green is good, yellow's okay, and red is not so good. Red was not buying the insurance and not having any claims. Believe it or not, that is the most expensive option. You either tap your net worth to pay claims, or you tap your net worth to pay premiums. And it's more efficient to pay premiums.
I just want to point out that this first graph, both these graphs are that first strategy. It says status quo, no claims, no premiums. And I'm thinking that is the best scenario, right? That's the best scenario.
And the worst result.
And the worst result. Look at that. See, to me, that would not be true. In my mind, I would say that can't be right.
When we first did this, we spent at least 2 weeks trying to figure out where the bugs in the system were, because that couldn't be right until we realized just the difference in the present value of those two items.
When I think of that, that's when the math really is overpowering, because what we've done, Bob through his software technology, has really positioned the best scenario, and I would have thought that would have been the best money scenario, and it was totally not there. They said, to me, that is really revealing, and it blows my mind. Let's talk about the heirs now. What's the impact to the heirs?
Well, obviously, green gets more to the heirs. In this particular case, almost the entire sub, but it's almost $1.5 million plus more to the heirs by doing it by buying the policy.
When we're looking at the impact, I'm trying to say, okay, if I looked at that premium based on I had an event and I paid it, and let's just say it's Steve's, this is my fantasy. I'll need assisted living at my home. I don't want to do a nursing home, okay? So let's just say I'm doing that. I'm handing out my heirs, all money, same, everything equal, cash flow, my assets and everything else. I'm actually picking up about $1.5 million more because I didn't have to use my present value and spend money on my care out of my own cash reserves.
Exactly.
I mean, bottom line, that's the math that we're talking about.
Exactly.
Now when I think about this, though, Bob, it seems, and I have to tell you, until I saw this, I was sitting there going, well, you know, if I really watch my diet and I really work out and I try to live long and do everything I was trying to do, perfect, and I didn't have any claims and I didn't spend any money on long-term care premium for extended care of any sort, I'd be money ahead. And when I saw this first graph, as you said, you guys had to go back and say, there must be a bug in the system, there must be something wrong. The algorithms came out and showed me this. This is what surprised me. I have to say, even I've been in this thing 30 years, you've been in this thing over 50 years, that surprised both of us, and we're long-term advisors. So I just want you to look at this again. This is a huge opportunity to really look at the math. And remember, there are some clients that this may not be appropriate for, but the vast majority of the numbers that we've crunched, most of the time, this is something you need to look at, because to me, providing long-term care for, in my view, it looks like it's going to be almost inevitable for most baby boomers out there. Somehow, some need is going to be needed. I say, even at the smallest or the least, it'll be assisted care living that I'll be looking at. I won't be looking at staying at home and letting it happen there. But I love all these opportunities that we can use for long-term care. If you want us to crunch this out again, remember, you can go ahead and order the actual the data collector. We'll fill it in and we'll see what those numbers are, and then you can judge for yourself. Should I do this or should I not? Well, that's our show for today. I want to thank Bob Ritter for being my special guest in today's Money Mentor. And remember, you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or just email me, steve.savant@ashbrokers.com. And don't forget what the good Reverend John Wesley once said, make all you can, Save all you can, give all you can. I'm Steve Savant. See you next week.